The Lord be with you. And with your spirit. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus and his disciples went on from the mountain and passed through Galilee. And he would not have anyone know it, for he was teaching his disciples, saying to them, "The Son of Man will be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him. And when he is killed, after 3 days, he will rise." But they did not understand the saying, and they were afraid to ask him. And they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you discussing on the way?" But they kept silent. For on the way, they had discussed with one another who was the greatest. And he sat down and called the 12 and said to them, "If anyone would be first among you, he must be last of all and servant of all." And he took a little child and put him in the midst of them. And taking him in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever receives one such child in my name receives me. And whoever receives me receives not me, but him who sent me." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise be to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Lead questions for today. Question number 1. The first reading shows how corrupt and ungodly persons often conspire to torment the innocent person. Why does this happen? And what recourse does the innocent person have? You will see today that this message we have been constantly preaching against the dominance of prosperity gospel, that it doesn't have basis. The innocent person in a world of evil gets tormented. He gets tormented because he is actually the innocent person in a corrupt world is not at home. His home is elsewhere. And those who are at home, who are those who are at home? Those who are at home, they make the person go through torment. So, why does this happen and what? I've answered it now. Anyway, you will add your own answer. And what recourse does the innocent person have? Question 2. How, according to our second reading, James chapter 3 verse 16 to chapter 4 verse 3, how does selfish ambition or inordinate ambition, how does it cause division, strife, violence, and war? Do you have any examples to give in our society today? Question 3. What are the elements of true greatness as taught by Jesus Christ in today's gospel? And 4. What are you doing right now? What are you doing right now? Or what do you intend to do so as to put Jesus' teaching on sacrificial love and selfless service into practice? What have you been doing? What are you doing right now? What do you intend to do in the future, beginning from after this, in order to put Jesus' teaching on sacrificial love and selfless service into practice? Yes, Emmanuel.
I want to answer question 3.
Yes.
What are the elements of true greatness as taught by Jesus Christ in today's gospel? Jesus says that we should be willing to serve, that we should not try to be the first, that the first shall be the last.
Aha. So if you strive to be the first, the first shall be
The last.
So you better be the last so that you may become the
First.
If you intend to be first, the trick to it is that you be the last so that you may be the first. Because in the circle of Jesus, the first shall be the
Last.
Give him a round of applause. Yes, Dominic. Oh, is that Bishop? Bishop. Oh, sorry. Dominic is in college. Bishop is suddenly growing.
I would like to add to question 3.
Question 3. Yes, he didn't finish it.
What are the elements of true greatness as taught by Jesus Christ in today's gospel?
Yes.
The true greatness is that you have to be the last before you can be the first. That you have to serve others before you can get to first.
In order to get to first, you have to serve others. That's the one you have added. Give him a round of applause.
I should not only try to be the first yourself, that you have to serve others.
Yes. Don't be trying to be the first. Serve others. Yes. You have something to add? Okay, give him a round of applause. Odozo.
So question 2. How, according to our second reading, how selfish ambition cause division, strife, violence, and war? Any examples in our society today? Father, this is very typical of today's happenings in our society, the politicians, politics, and the elements thereabout. We tend to put ourselves first before others, when it should be all before self. But what you find in our society...
What do you mean by all before self?
You have to put the people, the larger society,
the common good,
the indigent, the less privileged. Their interest has got to come first before your own interest. Because what you find today are people being very, very selfish because it's all about themselves. It's all about their immediate families. It's all about what really, grows their own ego. So people put themselves first before the society, and when it should be the other way around. And because of that, it causes a lot of division, tension, a lot of, people don't trust people anymore, and people have lost confidence, especially with the leaders of the kind of leaders that we have today.
So can we say some of the violence in our society is on account of that?
Yes, of course. When people lose confidence, they know that they have nothing actually to lose in actually protecting you. So people that should be protecting you are people actually creating platforms where you get more vulnerable and even under attack. So of course that increases the violence and the war and things, because it's now to your tens, O Israel. So everybody, you just go and fend for yourself and fight for yourself, because those who are privileged, who are opportuned, who are supposed to take care of other people or support other people, are no longer doing that.
So it's like a jungle. It's like jungle.
It's a jungle. It's a
We're
jungle
on our
out
own.
there.
That's what they call self-help.
Absolutely, Father.
What about, this is politics, what about family? Is there such elements? Do we have such elements in families?
But of course it happens within families. I mean, it's all about the leader. It's all about the man at the top. It's all about the woman at the top. If you are selfish in anything that you do, it reflects actually in your immediate family. And let me give this example. We do have people say, oh no, this Porsche car this is my private toy, my wife shouldn't touch it or whatever, but sometimes you find out that it should actually be the other way around. Let other people be happy, and you should actually drive the Toyota Corolla, so if it breaks down, you'll be able to fix it and to say, okay, no, madam.
Because you are able to come down and push car on the road better than madam, right?
Yes, of course, Father.
Are you already here?
So with that,
are you here?
So with that, sometimes often you find out that, even at home you don't get the best from her, because she eyes all the time that, okay, you go out with the car that never breaks down, but her own case is totally different. So of course it has its own variables, but
he is speaking from experience, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Give him a round of applause. Yes. Chilebere then Louis.
I want to attempt question number 4.
Okay.
But before I do that, I want to touch on question number 3 to provide a context. When Jesus called the 12 to himself to teach them about greatness,
Yes.
he brought a child. And told them that anybody that receives a child or someone like a child receives him. And that to be truly great, you have to be the last and servant of all. And I was reflecting on that early this morning. Why should it be the image of the child that demonstrates how service should be rendered? And I was asking myself, what are those attributes of a child that makes it the standard or the yardstick to measure who to serve? And I said to myself, the child is one, vulnerable.
Vulnerability. Meaning that the child is amenable to being hurt. The child is vulnerable. You see, many leaders in the world, they don't want to be vulnerable. That is why they surround themselves with kill and go people, and then with security, dark glass wearing security and a retinue or whatever. They don't want to be vulnerable. But was Jesus vulnerable? Oh yeah. An ordinary servant came and slapped him. He was vulnerable. Many poor people cannot reach the rich in our society. Ferocious dogs will chase you away because they are not vulnerable. They are not vulnerable. So the leader, in the image of Jesus, the leader should share in the vulnerability of the common people. And many leaders are not, many people who are in positions are not prepared to do that. Yes, apart from vulnerability?
Yeah. The child is dependent.
Dependent. Dependent on who?
On the parents.
Mm-hmm. And others.
Like we are dependent on the state.
And God. Dependent
on God.
Dependency. Yeah. The child is dependent. That's another element. Yes?
And the child is trusting.
The child is every child trusts the parents. In fact, every child believes that the parents can do anything, right? Yeah. And do everything. I mean.
And the child is easily forgiving.
Forgives very easily. I mean, I was told, who was telling me the story yesterday of two parents that were fighting. And they were fighting and police came and they were led to police station. Two parents. And while they were going, the children of the two parents were playing and sharing some biscuits. To show that they are not part of that. They are not part of that nonsense. The parents were dragging themselves to the police after fighting and refusing to settle. Meanwhile, the children said, "Oh boy, I beg, where is that biscuit?" I mean, yes.
And the child is poor.
The child is poor.
The poverty of the child makes the child be inquisitive to learn, inquisitive to experience things. So the poverty of the child, like we had like 2 Sundays ago, blessed are the poor in spirit,
makes the child open. Yeah.
Learn.
So it is even more, the child is open. The child has not gathered too much. So the child's fists are not clenched. The child is open, able to receive with child is open, able to receive. Receive both intellectually and receive from others. Yes.
So, Father, for me, this is the context within which leaders are called to serve. To look out for the vulnerable, to look out for the poor, and to provide for those who depend on their positions as trustees of the resources of the society. So for me, earlier on, I don't like broadcasting what I do, but since it's part of the question, shortly after youth service, I set up an NGO called Child Rights Enforcement and Development Agency, just for the realization that to be able to make a better world, we have to start from the children and the families. So that's one.
Congratulations.
It's ongoing. It's over most years now. And recently, in the last 3 years...
No wonder God is blessing you like this.
Thank you, Father. In the last 3 years, I'm supporting my local church at home to build a primary and nursery school. They have done 1 year now, and they have entered the second year.
May the Lord be praised.
After one term, some people dropped. They said they couldn't pay the fees, like 3,000 naira fees.
3,000.
So I told the priest that nobody that comes to that school should leave that school. Let him send the bill for those children that their parents could not pay. So I had to pay for them also to be in school. So I'm also asking support from those who could, so that we'll take the school to...
No, it's a very serious thing. I mean, please, those who have support, please support him to be able to do that. I mean, can you imagine? That's what inspired me to start up my own program. When I saw children whose school fees is 3,000 and they couldn't pay. Parents couldn't pay. And you know that they couldn't genuinely pay. And part of the reason is that we pay our domestic workers so little. And many of those parents are domestic workers and security guards and so on. So since we pay so little, then they cannot pay their children's school fees. So congratulations, and may the Lord bless you for the good work that you do. For me, this is the kind of testimonies that we should be giving among other testimonies. This is key among testimonies. We cannot say we are serving the Lord Jesus, who elevated children to the level he elevated children to, and projected a child, placated a child before us as the model of the kingdom, and allow and see children who have no future in our society, and see children in our society completely jaundiced, whose future is completely broken. And if we see that and it does not relate with our practice of religion, then that religion is a useless one. And that religion will die. That kind of religion, I say, will die because it has no foundation. Thank you very much. Any other question not answered? Louis.
Yeah, Father, I just want to add a bit to question 2 and question 1. For question 2, ego and the ability to let go is strongly linked to selfish ambition. Why I'm saying this is because when someone is guilty of this selfish ambition, at times the person feels like his decision or he's the only person that can fix the said problem at that time. So the person might think he has goodwill and think that he's the only person or his ideas that can work. One good example is the case in Syria. Now, I don't have 100% detail of what's happening in that country, but I know a lot is linked to the fact that the president believes that he is the only person that can fix the problem. And that's why there's a lot of violence and war going on there. Another good example is the former president in our country. A lot has been said about him, but something that is linked to this question also is the fact that people acknowledge that if he had tried to contest the result of the last election, there might have been a lot of violence. And so what that means is that the ability to let go is something that could be very difficult at times, but that's just the thing. If all humans could imbibe the habits, the ability to let go, even if you think that is your choice. Like in England, before they did the Brexit, the leader was opposing it. But they did a referendum, and when they did it, the people voted that they should leave Europe. And he did not go, he didn't like it, so he resigned. He let go. Let me add to question number one. In question number one, it's written clearly that the innocent person has recourse in God. We are urged to wait and see what God will do with the life of the innocent person.
To wait and
see what God will do, how God is going to protect the life of the innocent person who is decided to be just.
So his recourse is God.
In God, ultimately.
His recourse is in God. And why wouldn't you just say Psalm 23 for that? The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He leads me by quiet streams, by tranquil waters he lets me lie to revive my drooping spirit.
Yes.
Even critical verse, isn't it?
Yes.
Even if I walk in the deep valley of darkness, I shall not want, because you are there with your crook and your staff. You uphold.
Yes.
You see, let's use that word in this responsorial psalm. With your crook and your staff, you uphold me. You have prepared a banquet for me in the eyes of my enemies. My head you have anointed with oil. My cup is full to overflowing. Goodness and kindness shall follow me all the days of my life. And I'll dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. So, the innocent person has a recourse. His recourse is in God. Okay. Let's move on now. Jesus predicts his passion and death again. Is this the first time? He predicts it again. Last Sunday we saw Jesus presenting himself as the suffering servant who would be rejected, humiliated, and killed. Following this prediction of his passion, Jesus asked his followers to take up their own crosses daily, if they really wish to follow him. Take up your cross daily. Now, as Jesus travels to Jerusalem to face the impending suffering and death, and anxious to make his disciples understand the meaning of what lies ahead, we know what is going to happen in Jerusalem. He makes another pronouncement of his passion. He once again contradicted the understanding of the disciples of his identity and his mission, because they had their own ideas. Up to this point, the disciples understood him to be simply only a miracle worker and a political messiah. They were being subjugated by the Romans. They were paying taxes to the Romans. And now we have somebody powerful enough, a charismatic figure that will free us. And they saw themselves as the privileged successors, right, of a very powerful personality. That's what they saw. Even after predicting his suffering the first time and death, even after the second time, the apostles still did not understand. They actually started a discussion among themselves. They were beginning to do primaries. Oh yeah. They were staging the primaries before the big convention. Who is the greatest? I mean, when this kingdom comes, Jesus has told them twice about the fact that he is going to suffer, he's going to be killed. Who is going to, who will take the ticket? Who will be the party leader? And who will be the assistant leader, the vice? Yeah. So who is going to be going to the green chambers? Who is going to go to the red chambers? Who was the most important? Who should occupy the highest position? That's what they were arguing about. I mean, something serious is coming, and this is what they were arguing about. Their discussions soon grew into a heated argument that drew Jesus' attention. And when he asked them what generated the argument, what did happen? They kept silent, because immediately they became ashamed, because they knew what they were discussing about. This is because the discussion was driven by what? Selfishness and inordinate ambition. They knew it was not about the kingdom that Jesus has been talking about. It was about themselves. They showed how little they had learned and how poorly they understood Jesus' mission. Jesus brought a child and sat before them and challenged them to welcome the little child in his name. The little child in the child's powerlessness, in the child's helplessness, in the child's weakness, in the child's meekness, in the child's vulnerability. Is there something Chidebere called, I've not called? In the child's openness, in the child's trustfulness. Children are unpretentious. Children don't plot as adults plot. Right? Children don't plot as adults plot. Children don't scheme as adults scheme. All the plotting and scheming that is going around today in our society, count children out of it, right? They don't know any such thing. So, and the child of an APC person will go and play with the child of a PDP person and even report to them what he heard the father saying. I heard my father and one uncle, they came yesterday and they were talking about how they will deal with. Yes, they do not conspire, they do not connive or attempt to deceive or betray others. Children are open to learning new things. This is what Chidebere said. Children are open to learning new things. Jesus likens himself and his kingdom to that little powerless child. Unless you welcome the kingdom like this little child. He likens himself to that little child who cannot resort to power tactics. Even when the child is maltreated or threatened, still, all the child may begin to do is to cry. The child cannot resort to power tactics. Who cannot defend himself, whose only protection and defense is his father. I mean, the story of the child running around in the aisles of a train when the train was about to derail, and they asked the child, come, are you not afraid? Everybody here is afraid. The train is about to derail. Are you not afraid? And he said, no, I am not afraid. Why? He said, my father is the driver of the train. Period. Why should I fear? My father is the driver of the... That's the attitude of the child. My father is the driver of the train. My father will make sure that I am safe. So has put all his trust in the one who can keep him safe. Jesus likens himself and his kingdom to that little powerless child who is looking at some of you and doing like this. Look at them. That little child who cannot resort to power tactics once again when challenged. Now, Jesus' complete trust in his Father makes him vulnerable like a little child. Unless the disciples embrace that vulnerability, they will never understand the way of Christ. Now, in putting the child before his disciples, Jesus challenged them to do what? One, to welcome the powerlessness of a little child as the way of the kingdom. Once again, we face today in the gospel something that is a major contradiction to what is prevalent in our society. This is the kind of gospel people do not want to hear. And because I hammer on this, that's part of the reason why people do not give me money. Mr. Emo. The kind of things I hammer on is not what people want to hear. Yes, Jesus challenges us to do what? To welcome powerlessness. Who wants to be powerless? Who wants to be powerless? No. People want to be powerful and domineering and control others. But Jesus says, welcome the powerlessness of a little child as the way. That's the way to the kingdom. The way to the kingdom is narrow and winding, Jesus tells us. Jesus challenges us to relate with the Father with the openness and trust of a little child, to take to heart the weakest, and the neediest members of the community. Recognize that power and prestige are not a model of Christian discipleship. You really want to know what Christian discipleship is like? Look at that poor little helpless child. Don't look at that king. Don't look at that president. Don't look at that successful celebrity. This is counterintuitive. You know what is called counterintuitive? Meaning our human intuition, our human inclination, this goes against it. It's counterintuitive. Recognize, sisters and brothers, that power and prestige, no matter how much human beings seek it, kill themselves over it, struggle over it, they are not a model of Christian discipleship. Any so-called Christian disciple who presents himself in power and in prestige has violated the gospel. And so anybody who comes to tell you that this is how successful he is because he's a Christian, because he's a Christian preacher, he's a fraud. Yes, a Christian preacher can be comfortable, can be successful in anything, but that is not what makes a Christian preacher. And in fact, if a Christian preacher has too much of those things, he should be ashamed, especially in an environment of widespread poverty and human degradation and destitution. He should be ashamed. So you can see how we have stood the gospel on its head when Christian preachers begin to brag about the material things they have. That shows how far we have gone away from the gospel. Yes, it is rather vulnerability and service that distinguishes a Christian discipleship. What did I call it? Vulnerability and service. That is what distinguishes a Christian discipleship. If leaders of the Christian church have before now presented themselves in power, I mean, we know what happened in the Middle Ages. We know what happened in the Enlightenment period that culminated in the French Revolution. When Christian ministers, Christian leaders present themselves with the image of power and success and prestige, what often happens is that the devil is at work. The devil is at work. You want to see where devoted, committed, true Christian disciples are? Go and find out who is serving the lepers. Go and find out who is serving the people in the gutters. Go and find out who is uplifting the face of humanity among the handicapped. Those are the places where, did Jesus not say it now? As you did it for the least of my brethren, you did it for him. And who are those his brethren? Celebrities? Who are those his brethren? Successful sportsmen and women? Who are those his brethren? The sick, the wounded, the prisoner, the stranger, the hungry, the naked. Once again, people are going to write on social media now, what is wrong with this father? What do they call it? Spoiler, isn't it? It's a spoiler. He doesn't want us to enjoy whatever. And I'm saying, well, if our country were Sweden or Finland or one of these, Denmark, one of these rich countries with high per capita, Singapore, and of course, and the preacher is living middle class life, nobody will ask a question. Nobody will ask a question. At some point when I was studying in the US, I was driving around a Cadillac. No question. But in this place, when next door, how many, that village here is how long from here? 500 meters. When 500 meters away from this, our posh estate, 500 meters away, you see abject poverty human degradation, with no sewage system, with no water system, with nothing, and human beings are living there year after year. So if I am living like a medieval king, and I say it is because of the gospel that I am preaching, that God is blessing me, the question is God blessing you to just put it in your pocket, or is God using you as a channel to bless other people? That's the question. To whom much has been given, from him. Yes, we are to understand that true greatness consists in being the last and the servant of all. Like the disciples, we too are often plagued by inordinate ambition. When we talk about ambition, selfish ambition, inordinate ambition, please just don't think of only leaders, political leaders, religious leaders, and so on. Please think of yourself. Every human being is plagued with a measure of inordinate ambition. The ambition to be honored, the ambition to be the center of attraction, the ambition to rule, to control, to lord it over others, to dominate others, to manipulate others, the ambition to be served by others. Is it not this same ambition to be honored that makes some people want to be honored even in the house of God? That they are seeking honor, and some people think that they are generous, but they will only give their money where they will be honored, even in the house of God. Is that not true? Yes. And last Sunday, Kathy sent me a mail, and after last Sunday's gospel, she said she actually observed that a lot of Nigerians are generous. But that generosity is often tied to personal honor, some reward from God, reward from humanity, recognition. At the end of the day, you begin to question that generosity. You really begin to question, is that real generosity, or is it a transactional thing? You know what transaction is? I give you this, you give me that. If it is transaction, then it is not charity. Or am I mistaken somewhere? If it is a transaction, then it is not charity. Charity is what you do without looking back at any. Not even true charity, not even looking back at God's reward. I hope you know. You do it because that is what must be done. You saw children that are poor and decided to help them, not in order that you may get to heaven, but that this is, I have five things, and then there's somebody who doesn't have one, I give out two. That's what must be done. Not in order that I may enter heaven, because that becomes transaction. Victor, is that?
That's quite new to us.
Oh, Jacob, you want your own in order to enter heaven?
It's fantastic.
Yeah. In order to enter heaven. That's the only reason why you do servicing the poor?
No.
Oh, okay. That you do it because you have been transformed by God, and that is the way you look at life. Not in order that you enter heaven, least of all, in order that you may be made a pillar of the Terra Leadership Foundation. You do it because that is what must be done. Period. This is why the prosperity gospel is so attractive to people. This whole desire to be honored, desire to be the center of attraction, desire to be a celebrity, desire to control others is an instinctual thing. It's a human thing. We have that inclination. This is what we must kill. It is these desires. These are called the concupiscences that we must work against. This is what Jesus Christ has come to help us destroy. So when a particular preaching of the gospel elevates these same fleshy desires, that is definitely not the gospel of Christ. My homily that went around, I said, I am waiting for a Christian preacher who will come and take me on and show me in the New Testament where what they are preaching around, where it is founded. Till today, I have not seen anyone come to me. Because they can't find it. Many people are used to quoting 1 John. Look, that day I was on your program, and they quoted 3 John chapter 1 verse 2. It says, I pray that you may prosper. That you prosper in everything, in body and in health, as you prosper in the spirit. You are not prospering in the spirit and you think you prosper in the body. You are promoting prosperity of body when there is nothing happening in the spirit. These inordinate ambitions, according to St. James, spring from the conflicts of selfishness and greed, as well as the lust for power that is inside us. I mean, it's so attractive. I mean, we know that not all that glitters is gold, but we want to glitter now. Because people admire people who glitter. So we want to glitter. I remember, when I started giving these talks about happiness and how money doesn't make us happy, celebrity status doesn't make us happy, big positions don't make us happy, how it is. Somebody told me, let me become wealthy first. And when I discover it, then I will. St. John admonishes believers in 1 John 2:16-17 as follows. Can you read it together? Do not love the things of the world, for all that is in the world, the desire of the flesh, the desire of the eyes, and the pride in riches, comes not from the Father, from the world. Can you see that? So there are things that come from the prince of the world. Not all things come from. There are things. The desire, the passionate desire for these things, they come from the world. They are not from the Father. So when I say compare this with 3 John chapter 1 verse 2, which many prosperity gospel peddlers love to quote so much. Compare this one. Are you getting the point? Please make time to read the two passages. Read the passage of 1 John chapter 2 and read the passage of 3 John chapter 1 and see and balance it up. I pray, I wish that you prosper in body, in health, in whatever, in the same way as you prosper in the spirit. If you were really prospering in the spirit, you will share what you have. You won't be able to accumulate so much. Do you understand? The one who is prospering in the spirit is poor in spirit. The one who is prospering in the spirit will not be able to accumulate so much because he's busy sharing with the least. The selfish desire for wealth and power and popularity result often in ruthless and aggressive competition. We know that, right? Chief Virginius. The selfish desire for wealth, for power and popularity result often in ruthless and aggressive competition that destroys human relationships. In today's world and in our society, we even have ruthless competition among husbands and wives. You see, this is where the poor families defeat the rich families. See, the poor families where the man and the woman have to manage the little that they have and contribute in order to find the 6,000 naira to pay their children's school fees in the slum. They are not competing. But where the man has 3 houses in Banana Republic, what do you call it? Banana Island and Banana Republic, what's the difference? Okay, where the man has 3 houses in Banana Island and the woman has 2 mansions in Minister's Hill. Now it has become a competition. It has become a competition. The day the man discovers that in addition to the 2 houses in Minister's Hill, the woman has built another house in Asokoro. What happens? Kata kata. It's like, she didn't even tell me about that one. And I'm supposed to be the husband. And the Bible says wife should be submitted. The desire for these things often bind us to the world of violence. I have used the word before, rivet. I say, you see, when you screw something to something, it's easy to unscrew. But the desire for these things, what do? They rivet us to the world. It's not screwing. So, we are riveted to the world of violence rather than to the God of peace. As they bring about what? They don't bring about peace and loving relationship. What do they bring about? Division and conflict, persecution of the just and oppression, violence and death. St. Paul says in 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 10, the love of money is the root of all evil. And some have given their souls any amount of fatal wounds on account of the love of money. Now, does it mean that money is evil? Is all I am saying now, does it amount to saying that money is evil? No. It only means it is the love of money that is evil. After all, I bought my 4K TV with... Say, what for the... you don't have this type. A world of ruthless and aggressive competition is a world of violence and death. Why? Because that which you compete to get, you will compete to keep. Because others will compete to snatch from what you competed to grab from them. Una here? A world of ruthless and aggressive competition is a world of violence and death. Because, can you read? That which you compete to get, you will compete to keep. Because others will compete to snatch from you what you compete to grab from them. It's the natural course of things of life. That's how life works. You think that that guy who is that deadly punch or blow, you think if he gives to this person and he wins, you think this other person is going to sit down and say he has defeated me. What's going to happen? He's going to prepare for another. That which you compete to get, you will keep competing to keep, because others will compete to snatch from you what you competed to grab from them. Against the false ideas making the rounds about Jesus' identity and mission, we are presented once again with the ideal of what? A suffering servant, whose life is characterized by humility and service, and exemplified in the cross. Jesus, so who really is the greatest? Since you say prosperity gospel is wrong, at least prosperity gospel as being preached is wrong. So, who is the greatest? Jesus teaches that his followers should be ambitious for true greatness. Meaning, he didn't say we shouldn't be ambitious. He said we should be ambitious for true greatness, which is not to be found in being masters of others, but in being and service rendered to the least is the best of all service. Can we say that together? Service rendered to the least is the best of all service. You know the story of this child? Yes. And have you seen a recent picture of this child? The really great people and the happiest of people are not those who seek to further their own interests. Part of the reason why so many people are so unhappy is that so many people are seeking their own interests. If you can experiment on what Jesus is saying by putting your interest in the background and pursuing the interest of others, then you will find happiness. But as long as people have refused to put their own interest at the background and pursue the interest of others, that is the reason why so many people are so sad. Jesus has given us the recipe. Jesus is the one who came from the Father. He has given us the recipe for happiness. We have refused. I wish I can translate this my song in Ibira into English. Unfortunately, it's so difficult. Uhino inyara na sivai eweye umame ngoronyi umame ngorome umekaweye umame ngoronyi. Kai. We are talking about the message of Jesus. You say you don't know. The only king that came from the Father to us, if you don't know him and his message, how do you find peace? How do you find joy? How do you live peace? This is the story of humanity. This is our story in this country. That the shortest route to happiness, we have refused it, we have rejected it. Like I said, when I preach to somebody about the way to happiness, about my pathways to happiness that I have discussed several times with you, the person said, no, wait, let me become rich first. By the time you become so rich, you know what would have happened? You are addicted. You are addicted to honor, you are addicted to wealth, you are addicted to power. And addiction is a hard thing to... You can't just say today that, no, I want to change. No, you are addicted already. So the really great people and the happiest of people are not those who seek to further their own interest, but those who devote their lives to serving the interest of others. Jesus confronts the world of the worldly logic of wealth, prestige, power, and control to which many have enslaved themselves with the heavenly wisdom of the greatness that comes through humble service. Fine house, sleek car, sleek car, and solid money. Yeah, solid money indeed. Jesus makes it clear that his own kingdom is not about seeking honor or glory for oneself, but about serving others and seeking their dignity and comfort. It is in serving others. If you look at that picture closely, can you see that there is more smile in the face of the one serving than in the face of the one receiving? They say the hand that gives the rose takes much of the fragrance of the rose. You can't give a rose without... Yeah. So you see that picture actually picked up that element, that the woman who was serving the children had more smile on her than the children who have been served. She is smiling because it's like, I have the opportunity to do this. This is a grace for me to be able to do this. So she is actually happier giving away than the person who is receiving. Is that not what St. Francis of Assisi says? It is in giving that we receive. Only those who are prepared to serve others, to wash others' feet, to die for others will get to the top position in Jesus' kingdom. I know that this is a difficult message for human beings, because from childhood we have been schooled into thinking that me, myself, and I, these are the things that matter for me, for myself, I. But we have been schooled wrongly, and we need to get out of that addiction. We tend to define people in terms of the positions they occupy, the amount of money they control, or the political power and influence they exercise. Is that not how we classify human beings? Right? We classify human beings into what? Who occupies which high position? 2, who earns what? and who controls or exercises influence over others. That's how we rate people. That's how we value people. That's how we choose our friends. We make the mistake, and it's a terrible mistake, of putting people's jobs and positions ahead of their persons. And all of us are guilty to one degree or the other in this mistake. We are all guilty. This is why we call people by their positions. Dr. Joseph, pharmacist, engineer, architect Louis, barrister Solomon, surveyor Valentine, accountant Chidebere, senator, aspiring honorable commissioner. Oh, nurse. Rank and position have little to do with Christ's idea of greatness and importance. Actually, the higher your rank, the greater your responsibility to serve. Yeah. Actually, in the kingdom of Christ, before Christ, you better don't look for high positions, because Jesus Christ says, to whom much has been given. Can you imagine what the Lord Jesus expects of small people? Can you imagine if he says, to whom much has been given, from him much is expected? Can you imagine what he'll be expecting of you if you are desiring big position? Meaning, the higher your position, the higher the demand that the Lord makes of you. What did you use that position to achieve? If you only use that position to buy sleek cars for yourself, if you only use that position to get monstrous mansions that are just monuments, if you only use that position to fly around in business class, first class, if you use only that position to oppress others, then you will account for it, because to him much has been given, from him much is expected. In his eyes, I mean the eyes of Jesus, the simple task of a sweeper in the church is just as important as the work of the parish priest, of the archbishop, or even the work of the pope. Akako? The simple task of a sweeper who sweeps Luke's Terra Chapel diligently every time, knowing that I am in the presence of God and I am sweeping this. This is a duty I am doing to God. I say it is as important as the work of the parish priest, the bishop, or even the pope. Before Christ, Jesus teaches that in God's eyes and in Christian service, there are no menial jobs. For the Lord, it is how you did what he asked you to do, not how high the position you occupied. I think we are all agreed on this. How well you did what was entrusted to you to do. How well. What is the spirit you put into it? What is the love that ushered out from what you do? Not what position you occupy, really. Greatness is not found in possessions. Greatness is not found in power, in possessions, power, position, or prestige. Where is it discovered? It is discovered in goodness, in humility, in service, and character. Martin Luther King Jr. says, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Ask your neighbor. No, get a response, not just ask and go away. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Turn and ask your neighbor. Get a response from him, because I'm going to call you to ask, what did he say he's doing? Yes, I want two people to tell me what their neighbor said they did for others. Yes, Inya, what did she say she's doing for others?
My neighbor is a nurse.
Your neighbor is a nurse, yes?
And what she said was cleaning poo for others. That's what she said. Cleaning the waste, excreta for others. She also mentioned someone else came from another unit to their ward where they were cleaning, and they were happy, they were gisting, they were laughing and all of that. And then I guess the senior nurse looked at and the person was just standing like, are you people okay? You're cleaning all this, you're not frowning, you're laughing, you're joyful. And the matron had to tell her, look, why are you wondering about this? I'm sure if it's in your ward, you will be frowning and cursing people and doing all of that. So doing that with joy and with service in mind.
So
that's what she's doing.
There could be different ways of cleaning people up.
Exactly.
This time, clean people up with a Christian spirit and joy. And the job will actually get easier.
Absolutely.
The job will get easier on account of the spirit you put into it. Yes? Who has shared something with Mrs. Ogali? What did your neighbor tell you that she is doing for others?
She said she has seen so many people through school.
Oh, she has seen many people through school.
Yeah. Paying their school fees and all.
In the past.
Are you still doing it? She said yes.
Okay, she is still doing it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Give her a round of applause. Okay, give her. Give
My neighbor said that she shares with other people because sharing is caring.
Sido, is it Sido? Sido says she shares with other people because sharing is caring. Thank you, Sido, because many of these are sitting down, they don't share with anybody. So thank you for helping us recognize that sharing is caring. Okay. No time is better spent than in the service of others. Let's read once again. True greatness, true leadership is achieved not by reducing men to one's service, but in giving oneself in selfless service to others. So, we conclude then, what makes us great is therefore the quality of our service. That's why I say, whether you are president of a country, you are parish priest of a church, or you are sweeper in the church, or you are a nurse cleaning in the hospital, it doesn't make a difference before God. Does that make a difference before God? No, God doesn't care what difference. What is important before God is the quality of our service, and especially how we serve those who are weaker and more vulnerable than we are. Talking about cleaning people who are vulnerable, who are sick in hospitals. I have told you before that I consider bedside nursing as one of the most noble professions in the world. Because if you have ever been sick, then you know what it means to be completely vulnerable and depend on. So how you handle that, it is one of the most noble jobs, Just last week, my sister had an event at Beto Hotel with an international training program on taking care of diabetic sores, diabetic foot. And the kind of pictures of sores, if you don't know what diabetic sore is, pray not to have anybody around you have it. It is horrible. Where people have diabetes, then it degenerates to having a sore, then the sore is not immediately well taken care of, and it becomes gangrenous. And then they will now begin to cut one toe away and cut another toe, or cut the leg away and cut another one. But before they cut it, generally human beings, at least in our society, are not so eager to get one of their limbs cut, right? So before they cut it, what you see. So when I told my sister that when those pictures were being shown, I couldn't open my eyes, she said, that is what we see every day, and we have to take care of the wound. As long as the person is alive, we have to take care of the wound. Those are, for me, those are some of the most noble jobs in the world. Not the job of sitting down as a big man and being driven around in sirens. No. Before God, those are the most noble jobs. What makes us great is doing what God wants us to do with what? Simplicity of heart. Really great persons, therefore, are those who serve the poor, the sick, and the weak, the orphan, the widow, and the handicapped, the aged, the prisoners, the abandoned, the most vulnerable in society. Can you see the girl on the right? She is doing the kind of work I'm talking about. Her small sister is vulnerable, and she's giving her, even if it is a cup of cold water. That is a noble work, and that's the kind of work Mother Teresa did all her life. The girl on the left is giving a helping hand to the one who has one leg. Do you see that? She's doing a noble job. Waldo Emerson says what? To know even one life has breathed easier because you lived. This is to have succeeded. To have succeeded is not to be a celebrity, my dear friends. There is too much emphasis on celebrity status in our day. Everybody wants to be a celebrity. That's why most of our children now, all they want to be is to be footballer. All they want to be is to be music celebrity. All they want to be is to be show business celebrity. Because we have shown our young people that what is important in life is to be celebrity. There's nothing wrong with being celebrity. But just know that success in life doesn't have to do with being a celebrity. Success in life, according to Waldo Emerson, and he's quite an inspiring writer, it is that you have made one person breathe easier because of what you have done. Meaning that somebody is struggling to breathe and he couldn't, and you arrive there and help the person, and the person is able to breathe easier. That is to have succeeded. There should be no confusion about it. The road to greatness and success for every Christian, therefore, is what? Loving service. So, finally, Christian ethics. Values and virtues of the Christian life. 1, human dignity, that we have respect for all human life. 2, compassion, that we have loving service to the community. 3, option for the poor, what I call preferential option for the poor. Care for the neediest in society. Therefore, for Christians, the good life is embodied by Jesus, who lived a life of prayer, service of God, and care of the neediest in society. That is the life of faith. That is the life of hope. That is the life of love. Heavenly Father, we thank you. We praise you, we glorify your holy name for your many blessings. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you once again for reminding us of what greatness in your kingdom is all about. Yes, we human beings desire worldly greatness. We desire show business. We want to be honored. We want to be celebrated. We want to be attractive to everyone. But today's lesson, Lord, is that what is important is the love we put into whatever we do, no matter how humble. Lord, help this message to sink into us. Help this message to get into us and to germinate and grow and bear fruits. Help us to begin to adjust the way we look at people in society, that we may begin to give due recognition for those who do work for the least of your brethren. And as we give them due recognition, that the children growing up in our society may have their priorities right and seek the greatness and the success that comes from service through Christ our Lord.